justice class. Some of you are here for different reasons. Some of you might be, want to carry on into law. Some of you may want to carry on into law enforcement. Some of you may just want to know a little bit more. This is an easy elective that you got to take in order to get to where you want to be, right? So, show of hands, who here thinks that they may have an interest in law enforcement? Good, enough hands in the room that I know I'm not just sitting here, wasting oxygen, right? So, what he said is absolutely true. It's a hard job. It really is. Because your generation, for most of you, right, a few people in the room are a little bit older, but your generation likes to question everything, right? Whereas my generation was taught not to question things. So when your generation comes up against my generation and you're just asking why, and it's like, hey, do what you're told. I'll explain it later. But right now I don't have the time to spend 10 minutes explaining why I'm doing this, because there's a guy with a gun around the corner and I really just need you to get the heck out of here, right? I don't have time for that. And sometimes that gets hard, right? Because you're like, that guy was rude. How dare he speak to me like that? You know what? I'm not gonna do what he said. I'm gonna get my phone out. I'm gonna record, I'm following him. Yeah, that's where I'm going. Meanwhile, you're walking yourself right into danger, right? So there's a disconnect between law enforcement and some parts of society right now, which is why we come when we talk like this, because this is open forum. You guys can ask questions, and it's not in a position where you got red and blue lights behind you on the side of the road and you're wondering if your freedom is in danger, right? This is where this forum comes in, where you guys can ask questions and talk about it, because we are human. I actually don't wear this all day. I go home, I have a family, I have dogs, I have hobbies, I have things that I like to do. I even have children, believe it or not. That, let's see, 19 to 28 is my child range, so probably falls into the range of most of the people in this room, right? So with that said, I have some trifolds up here with some information on employment. Everybody in here knows how to use a computer. Everybody in here knows how to go online and search, I want to be a police officer, or I want to be a dispatcher, or I want to be whatever. And you can find the information, right? Everyone knows how to do that. But they're up here in case you want to take one. I'm also going to leave a couple business cards with the professor, so you guys can get in touch with me if you want to. The reason that I'm here speaking to you is I'm also in charge of the recruiting team. So one of the other hats that I wear. I come and I speak to college classes, I get on the military base, I talk at job fairs, we set up booths, because we, in law enforcement, the numbers are shrinking. It's a hard job. Nobody really, I grew up, I want to join the military. I spent 7 years active duty. I was a corpsman stationed with 1st Marine Division, deployed overseas, spent a little time in the desert, had a good time, right? Getting out, I'm like, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to stay in the medical field? Do I want to get into law enforcement? My dad was a cop, my uncle was a cop, my cousin was a cop. I'm like, let's give it a shot. And then 21 years later, I'm still giving it a shot, seeing what happens, right? A lot of times nowadays, though, you guys don't understand the importance of it. And I know there's different sides of it, like we talked about. My belief is that without law enforcement to hold the line, there can be chaos. And if you guys look in recent history in certain cities, there is chaos. And some argument could be made, well, the cops caused it, right? That one guy did that one thing to that one other guy, so the whole city rioted. But like we said, we're not all bad. Are there bad apples? Absolutely there's bad apples. Amongst this room, statistics show that somebody in here is probably not a good human being, sadly, right? Now, hopefully it's not this room, hopefully it's like that room or the room over there. But not all society is good. There is evil out there in the world. And that's where police come in. Because when things go bump in the middle of the night and you don't want to go see what it is, who do you call? Right? You're calling 911 because somebody like me is going to show up and be like, what happened? Oh, I heard something in my backyard. I think someone's trying to break into my house. All right, I'll be right back. Right? Not everybody has that intestinal fortitude to do that. It takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that. And that's why we come here, because there's people here who are interested who may have questions. And going up to the cops at Starbucks when they're 3 deep and they're having their coffee break and they all look very unfriendly, and you roll up and they're like, hey, can I ask you a question? And they're like, what? Probably not the time, right? You're like, never fine, man, you obviously need your caffeine, sorry to bother you. Or on that scene where there's 3 or 4 guys curved out on the street in handcuffs, and you have a question about, hey, I wonder how much he gets paid an hour. Officer, I have a question, right? Probably not the best time, right? That's what forums like this are for, so that you guys can ask questions, ask away. It's good, whatever you have, even if it's controversial. I may not answer it. I may tell you, hey, you know what, I don't have a political opinion on that. Because when I wear this, I'm supposed to be unbiased. It doesn't matter if you're far left, far right, don't know which way you are, it doesn't matter. Because I have to treat everybody fairly and equally during this job. So you may have a question that's controversial, like, what do you think about this? And I don't have an opinion on that right now, I'm sorry, you know. But if you guys ask questions where we can have a conversation, I would love to have a conversation with you all and talk to you about it. You know, I'd like that it kind of stays in the realm of being employed as a police officer or a dispatcher or a community service officer down the road, but if it gets away from that, we can kind of steer it back. I've done this one before. I can kind of take the conversation and get it moving. So with that said, who's got a question? You got it first. Go ahead.
All right, so if you see someone swerving on the road and you pull them over, what is your initial thought or process to approach that person? Because they possibly could be in trouble with the swerving and points like that.
Okay, good question. When I first started this job 20 years ago, my initial thought on that was, hey, they were probably drunk. So I'm walking up to that car like this person may be intoxicated. However, nowadays, like my phone is on my vest. I purposely put it on my vest so that I'm not sitting here, oh, what time is it, right? Just like I haven't seen one person here pick up their phone, and I appreciate that. Nowadays, why are you swerving? It could be any number of things. You could be on FaceTime. You could be on TikTok. You could be making you're doing one for the gram. Who knows? So we go into these situations because you're probably on your phone. That's what I've found. Drunk driving, indications of drunk driving and indications of being on your cell phone are almost indicative of, they're very similar to each other. They're very, very, very similar. And it's hard to differentiate the two. Normally what I found is if I follow a person for 10, 15, 20 seconds, that text message is over, they put their phone down, they start driving normally. Whereas if you're drunk, it's not like you're sober in 15 seconds. So that's usually, for me, when I'm behind somebody, that's something I'm looking at. Did that answer your question? Outstanding. You think you had one?
You've worked for Oceanside PD for 20 years, right?
Yes.
Did you know anyone in dispatch with the last name Almanza?
What is it?
Their last name was Almanza. First name was Connie.
That does not sound familiar. How long ago?
Probably like 15 years ago.
15 years ago? I mean, it could be. Yeah. Our dispatch center is in our building. We go in there from time to time. 15 years ago, I was on motors, so I didn't see them as much. When I was working graveyards, I'd go in there often because, you know, it's only a couple of us working and you want to make sure that they don't need coffee down at 7-Eleven because it's 3 in the morning. But no, I do not remember that. I had him in the back.
Is there a big difference between probable cause and reasonable suspicion?
Absolutely there is. So reasonable suspicion, it's a good question, right? Reasonable suspicion means I believe that something may have happened and you may be involved in it, okay? Call comes out of the 7-Eleven just got robbed, and the call comes out of a Hispanic male, 5'8", wearing a dark hoodie. That's a standard description that we get, right? Well, how many people does that fit in a certain neighborhood at a certain time? Everyone knows. Pretty much, right? And, okay, what's Hispanic? Does that mean dark skin Hispanic, light skin Hispanic? I can't tell, like, I don't know what race you are, right? I don't, right? And I'm not gonna sit and guess, because that'd be wrong of me. I'm just not going to assume. So I may stop you because you're wearing that dark hoodie and say, hey, I got a call, blah, 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 and you're like, well, I'm Middle Eastern, I'm not Hispanic, you know? Okay, but the person, the witness, gave us a description. That gives us the right to legally detain someone while we investigate, okay? Now you, as a private citizen, also have rights to that. You have to listen, unfortunately, but you're actually not required to ID yourself. You're not required to talk to us. You just have to comply and say, okay, yeah, I'll sit here. 10, 15 minutes goes by. Hey, officer, I have a question. Have you figured out it's not me yet? Because I got to go, you know? Because in that time frame, we're getting the witness, bringing him to the scene, saying, hey, is that the guy that you saw? Oh, no, the guy didn't have long hair like that. Okay, cool. Hey, I appreciate your time. Thank you for cooperating. You have a great day. Did you have any questions about why you got stopped? Okay, awesome. Hey, take care of yourself. That's how the conversation should go. Obviously, we all see social media, we all see the videos. What do you stop me for? I didn't do anything. You might be right. You might not have done anything, but please just listen. But then it escalates. Because what if you did do something? And just because you argue, now we're just gonna let you go? Well, wouldn't that just be letting criminals get away with anything they want to just because they want to challenge the cops? All right? And that's something that's hard, especially in like we talked about the generational gap. I was taught, cop comes up and says, hey, have a seat, I gotta talk to you. Yes, sir, I'll have a seat. Yeah, absolutely. Different generations. So, probable cause. Probable cause means that we have established at least 51% in our minds, and 51% is the minimum standard. I'll tell you right now, I don't know anybody that holds on to that 51%, but we have established that we believe that that person has committed the crime more than they haven't. And that gives us probable cause to arrest that person. So we can then take that person into custody, get them into jail, write a great report, and that's where the lawyers come in. Because the court standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's much higher than probable cause, right? So you have reasonable suspicion, I think maybe, probable cause, yeah, I'm pretty sure, and then beyond a reasonable doubt, 12 people in a box say you're absolutely the one that did that. Does that answer your question? I had some other hands, go ahead.
Okay, so what is your training process? Is it just like the military? Because I was in there, you know how PT or you have to pass.
Yes.
Is it the same thing
In law enforcement?
in law enforcement?
So I can talk about the San Diego Regional Academy, which is held down at Miramar College, which takes all of San Diego County agencies with the exception of CHP. We all train together. So in the military, you go through boot camp, you know, you gotta do a PT standard, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, a lot of cleaning, things like that. Police Academy is a little bit different. Police Academy, it's a Monday through Friday, generally, job, 7 a.m. to 3:30, generally. You know, there are some night shifts and things like that. There is PT, you're gonna run 3-4 times a week, right? Usually you start off slow, mile, 2 miles, you build up to where you're running 3, 4, 5 miles. There has to be a physical standard to do this job, right? I walked up 4 flights of stairs. I don't know if you saw me have the conversation with the security guard out there. It was a little choppy because he was still catching his breath because he was trying to catch up to me as we walked up the 4th flight of stairs. Right? I try to, I'm 46 years old, I'm not in horrible shape, but I try to at least maintain some resemblance of shape, because if I gotta fight that guy over there for some reason, I wanna be able to win, or at least breathe, right? It's true. If you get injured and I need to pick you up and carry you, you expect me to be able to pick you up and carry you, right? So there is a physical standard that has to happen. Our pre-standard, in order to get to a background investigation, is you have to run 1.5 miles in 14 minutes and 55 seconds, which, let's be honest, we can speed walk that pretty easily. You have to drag a 160-pound dummy 32 feet in under 30 seconds. That means, like, basically from that wall to that door, you got 30 seconds to do it. It's super easy once you learn a technique. 30 push-ups, 30 sit-ups, you have a minute to do both. What's that?
It's easy.
It's easy. That's the minimum standard though. Yep, so that's the minimum standard, right? Now, obviously that's just to get you to a certain point. The academy can be a little physically, it's strenuous. That vest and this belt is 25 pounds of gear that I wear every day on my body, walking around. It wears on me, it wears on you. When I was young, it was fine. When I was a young infantry kid, wearing 80 pounds of gear, going on a 10-mile hike, whatever, this is fine. Now when I wake up, I snap, crackle, and pop because my knees don't really enjoy that anymore, right? So, that answer your question? Outstanding. Who else have a question? Yes?
Does having like kids in a family make going to work harder?
Yes and no. Because there's two things, right? When you have kids in the family, that gives you more life experience. So, when I come and I talk to you about a problem that you're having, let's say, how old are you? 26. You're 26 years old and you're like, what does this guy know about my life? You're 46 years old, how are you gonna help me? Well, what you don't know is I have a 28-year-old daughter who might have had some, whatever your issue may be, may have had a similar struggle, right? And that's why, do I know how to talk to a mid-20-year-old female about some problems? Yeah, I got a 28-year-old daughter, and that's where having the family can help. on the flip side, not having a family when you're younger, I mean, you can work more overtime, you can immerse yourself more into the job, right? Good and bads to both of it. I had, let's see, my son was 4, my oldest daughter was 8, my son was 4, and I had one in the oven when I was in the academy. You know, not me, clearly, obviously, my wife, but, so I kind of grew up with having that family, watching my kids grow up through this career. My son followed in my footsteps. He's currently a corpsman stationed with 1-4. He followed in my footsteps there. He wants to follow in my footsteps into law enforcement. So there is that side of it as well, but not detrimental on either side. It's just pros and cons on each side of it. Yes, sir.
Have you ever had to arrest someone you know or like your kid?
Yep.
How'd that go?
Oh yeah, it's interesting. So normally what we do, if the ability arises, like let's say we're neighbors and I know you and I coached you in Little League and I roll up and you're sitting there drunk off your butt after, and I'm like, if the ability arises, I'll go with my partner and be like, hey man, I know Todd. I can't be a part of this. Can you handle this? I know it's my beat. I'm sorry, but hey, can you handle this real quick? Hey man, good luck. Right? It's being unbiased. Because, man, what happens if I run you through field sobriety test and I'm like, no, yeah, he's good, but you're not. How's that gonna look?
It's gonna go on you and I'm gonna be dead probably.
You know, it's like, you may get back in the car and kill somebody, right? Or I just lose my integrity. I mean, my word, I firmly believe that my word is gold, because it's the job I do.
And you took an oath.
And I took an oath, right? And whether everybody in this room agrees with it or not, because I'll be honest with you, I watch social media too. I watch the videos. I look at videos and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Don't do that to the other cops. Like, you know, there are things where I watch and I'm like, no, you're ruining it for all of us. You know, like, how did you get through backgrounds? Like, there's a certain case where a guy had 21 complaints in a 20-year career. 21 citizen complaints in a 20-year career. I've had one citizen complaint, and it was a pissed off 15-year-old who didn't like that I talked to her poorly. And you know what? I talked to her poorly, and I admit it, because I was trying to make an impression, because my kids were about that age at the time, and I might have forgotten that it's not my kid. It happens, right? But one in 20 plus years, and this guy had 21. What is he still doing on the streets? He doesn't need to be there. This is not for him, you know? And that's a failure of the department. It's a failure of the leadership to handle that. And I think you guys may or may not know who I'm talking about. He's certainly in prison. We had riots all over this country because of the actions that he did, and because he wasn't held accountable, right? So it's very important in my line of work that we are held accountable, which is why I come here and I speak to you. I have no problem being recorded. Hey, can I record this? But how would you guys feel if I was like, yeah, I'd rather if you didn't. You're all like, why not? Everything I do is on film. I carry a body camera. I have a dash cam in my car. Everything I do is on film. I just assume that I am being recorded and I'm going to be judged by everybody every given minute of my life. It's just my assumption. That way, if I do say something off color and somebody says, ooh, you probably should have said that, I'd be like, all right, I get that, right? But it also has saved me many times because, you know, people are like, oh, he called me this. Watch the body cam. I never called you that. I called you ma'am, you know, like, all right, or I called you miss, or I called you, hey, can I talk to you? You know, I never said, hey, get over here real quick and have a seat. It's just how we talk to people. So, answer your question? Did it?
Yeah, that's.
Okay. You in the back, I'll get you over in a second.
I have 3 questions. Do you have any information on the ROV officers?
ROV.
Yes.
Since I don't know what that means, you're gonna have to.
Riverside Off-Road Vehicle Division.
I do not. I work in Oceanside. We have an off-road division in Oceanside. I can talk to you about ours, but I don't know anything about Riverside.
Could you explain more yours?
Sure. We have agricultural areas and we have areas that aren't built yet, right? Like just areas that are just still mountainous terrain, Oceanside, and we have a couple guys who are motors, who get on dirt bikes, because a lot of kids will go out there with their dirt bikes, and while it's fun, right, neighbors might not want to hear it at 7 in the morning, so they call and they complain. The reason we started ours is because 4 or 5 kids went out there and they started a brush fire that actually almost burned down 10 homes. That prompted us to create our team. So our goal is for education. Going out there while you guys are out there on your dirt bikes and saying, hey, We prefer if you guys didn't do this out here. The last group that was out here started a fire. That way you guys say, okay, cool, I'll go somewhere else. I'll go to where it's legal out in like Elsinore or something like that, right? Now you keep doing it, education turns into enforcement. You know, that's the other side of that thing. But does that answer your question about the?
Yeah, what's the name of the division?
We just call it our off-road enforcement team.
Off-road.
O-R-E-T.
And for number 2, the Crown Vic or Ford Explorer?
Crown Vic, every day, all day. The Ford Explorers, I think, I joke all the time saying that we drive minivans for work right now. So, I actually have I have an assigned take-home car, it's an F-150, so I was ecstatic when they handed me the keys to that thing, because the Explorer it's a rough vehicle.
And have you or any of your colleagues experienced any form of racial bias while on the job?
Absolutely. You know how many times I've been told that I'm racist just because I show up? I'm a bald-headed white man, right? And there are people in the world who just firmly believe that cops are all racist. Every last single one of us. I have been there with my black partners, my Hispanic partners, my Puerto Rican partners, my Middle Eastern partners, and I have literally had somebody go down the line with racial slurs for each one of us because they just believe that we were all racist. So it happens, you know. Sadly, the way I look at that, I get paid to be a professional. I'm going to be a professional. That's why I don't snap back at somebody or even. I mean, like we tell people all the time. You're like, hey, if that was the case, if I was truly racist, if I truly hated you based solely on your race, wouldn't I have just killed you by now? Right? Like, why would I even be talking to you? Like, wouldn't I just arrest you? Like, if you truly hate someone based on their race, hate, that's what racism is. Hate based solely on race. No other factors, just race by itself. Why would you treat that person with any respect at all? If you hate them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's something for you guys to think about when you're going through life that, yeah, you may feel something happen because of race, but is it really race? Like, I've always said this, and I've said it since the military. In a combat infantry unit, I don't care what color the person is next to me, as long as they can cover their field of fire. Because I need them to protect this side of me. I need him to protect that side of me. They need me to protect this side of them. Character over color, every day, all day. It doesn't matter, it's all about the character. So, answer your question?
Yes, sir.
I think somebody over here had a hand up? Yes, sir.
More personal question for you. Have you ever feared for the 21 years in your 21 years being in the force? Have you ever feared for your life?
Absolutely. Feared for my life, there's a handful of times. You know, there's one time that I've actually had to do something to protect my life on this job. And you guys all have access to Google. You guys can figure it out. I'm sure somebody can figure it out by the time I get downstairs. But yes, absolutely. There's been times where I've been in fear of getting hurt, and there's other times where I've been in true fear of losing my life. So yes, it's part of that job. I also had that several times in the military. You know, like there's times where rounds start flying and you don't even know where they're coming from yet. So that's part of the risk of the job, but it's also part, like we talked about, not everybody has the intestinal fortitude to do the job, and that's part of it. You gotta suck it up. You gotta be like, hey, hopefully I'm better trained than the person on the other side of that door.
What was the biggest issue that you faced being on the force? What was your biggest issue that you had with someone?
My biggest issue that I've had with someone, you're talking about like a private citizen, talking about employee.
And
The hardest part is trying to bridge a generational gap, right? Trying to talk to that 17-year-old kid, doesn't have a father in his life, been running amok, his mom's busy, you know, working 2 jobs trying to just pay the rent and feed him, and then trying to make him understand that the actions that he's doing right now could severely affect the rest of his life, and that he's going to mature and he's going to want to do something with the rest of his life, and if he could just stop being the way he is right now, he would have a much greater chance of success as he gets a little bit older. Trying to do all that while being told that you're, you know, every bad word in the book and all the other things that go with that. That's the hardest challenge, because you don't want to give up on the kid, because, you know, unfortunately other people have given up on him in his life. So if you give up on him, what's that teaching him? Nobody loves me, nobody cares about me, I'm just gonna keep acting the way I'm acting. Because if I can do this career and I can change one person's life for the better, I've done my job as a human, right? I mean, like to think that I've at least done that already in 21 years, but you know, that's kind of the goal, is we leave this place better than we found it. It's what I teach my kids, you know, leave the place better than you found it. So if you can treat people with respect and y'all have a happy day, hey, I left you better than I found you, right? I'm sure when I walked in here, there was at least 1 or 2 people who were like, what's this guy talk about, right? I got other things I'd rather do. He's gonna be watching. He knows what car I drove here. My insurance isn't up to date, man. My registration's not paid, right? So hopefully you guys, when I leave this room, don't feel that way, and you actually maybe feel that you can come up to us and approach us and talk to us, because we are just human, you know? We also have bad days. Yeah, I had the worst call, one of the top 3 worst calls of my life last week. I had a bad day. That bad day carried into a bad another day, to a bad another day. So I wasn't very friendly during those times. So you know what I did? I tried to limit my social interaction with people. I'm not gonna stop you for speeding that right then, because you may ship at an attitude with me, and my bad day is gonna be projected right on you. It's not fair to you. You didn't cause my bad day. So therefore, there's a motorcycle that blew past me at 110 miles an hour on my way to work. I live 3 miles away and I work in Oceanside and I had a take-home car. I was like, go with God, sir. You know? It just wasn't my time to talk to him, because I would have lost my temper. Yeah, because I'm human. I have a temper. We all have a temper. Everybody in this room has a temper. I would have lost my temper, but I'm old enough and mature enough to understand that, you know what? He's good. He'll get caught down the road. Karma will catch up to him, you know, not worth it. So, answer your question? Yeah, one more? Go ahead. He got 3, I'll give you 3.
He's on a roll.
He's on over here. I got one over here too. I'll get to you next. Never mind. Next. Yes, sir.
It's true that, let's see, chicken feathers, water is exempt from littering, and then one more thing, like
Go ahead.
civil service workers, whether it be federal, state level, whatever, kind of, you know, for small infractions can get by with, like professional courtesy.
Everybody can get by with a courtesy. I've given plenty of warnings to everybody. Right? Now, is it true that, you know, back in the day, you flash your badge, you're like, hey, you're good to go? Yeah, absolutely. But what does that create? That creates that stigma that it's us versus you, right?
Real quick on that point, I did that. I was young at the time, in my 20s, and I was speeding, got pulled over, and it was a sheriff. And I just happened to pull my wallet badge out. And I think he was on the fence about giving me a ticket, but when I showed him the badge, he was now definitely gonna give me a ticket. And he actually told me that you should have known that. Held me to a higher standard.
Yep. And because I had a guy who I cited for doing 105, who was a Riverside County corrections deputy, who just assumed he could do whatever the heck he wanted to do. And that was his attitude when I rolled up. It was like, whatever, man, you ain't gonna do shit. Oops, I said a bad word, sorry. As he holds up his ID. And I'm like, I'll be right back. You know, it's because it's not right. It's not right to think that I'm better than you just because I have an ID card in my pocket or a badge or something. I'm not better than you. I'm not better than anybody in this room. You know, we're all different. So, and nowadays with body cam, if you say that, chances are you're gonna get what everybody else would have gotten that day, you know? Now in my career, if I give someone a break for whatever reason I choose, the next person gets a break too. You know, or maybe that's the last stop I make that day because I need to be fair, right? But again, I've given soccer moms breaks, I've given parolees breaks, I've given bad people breaks because maybe that bad person, they're actually going somewhere to better their life. They tell me the right sob story, they pull on the right emotional freaking chain that I have, and I'm like, all right, just got out of jail. Where are you going? You're going to your kid's birthday. When's the last time you saw your kid? 3 years ago, because I've been in. You know, I sat out for a minute. All right, I can hook you now. Or maybe getting to your kid's birthday might actually teach you that you want to be out here and do the right thing. So let me give you the first break. Go see your kid. All right? And I catch you tomorrow. Don't tell me about this kid's birthday, because that was today. All right? You got 364 days before you can use that again. So.
Can you talk real quick,
Yes, sir.
since we're on this discretionary policing type?
Absolutely.
Letter of the law versus
Spirit of the law. Absolutely. Letter of the law. All right. How would you drive? No. Okay. Let me. Do you drive? All right. How would you feel if I got behind you on Highway 15 and I pulled you over because you were doing 71 miles an hour and I gave you a ticket?
Well, I would be like, well, everyone else is going 71 miles per hour faster than me.
Sir, 22349A of the vehicle, oh, sorry, 22356B of the vehicle code says the max speed limit in the state of California is 70 miles an hour, and you're doing 71. So I'm gonna need you to sign right here. By the way, that's gonna cost you $270. It's gonna put a point on your license, your insurance is gonna raise for the next 3 years, and you being under 25, that means that's probably gonna cost you another $500 or $600 on top of that.
Yeah.
Hey, watch your speed, young man. Watch your speed.
And just to piggyback, the judge, because I was in the courtroom when this happened, the judge actually listened to the defendant, and he says, well, how fast were you going? It was posted 55. He goes, I could have been 58 at the most. He goes, so you're admitting you broke the speed. The speed, what's the speed limit? Guilty. That was it.
22349B, yeah.
Cut and dry. That's the letter.
That's letter of the law, all right? Spirit of the law. I give a 15-mile-an-hour cushion before you even get my attention. Unless you're being an idiot on the road, cutting people off, multiple lane changes, all right? You're gonna get my attention just for doing that. But I'm talking 15 miles an hour. That's a lot, all right? So we're doing 70 on the freeway, the speed limit's 70, who does 70? You gotta be going over 86 to even get my attention. Now, you see me and you slow down, and you paid the proper respect of the law, we appreciate that. Hey, great, you've learned, consider that yourself, consider that a warning. You know? You see me, and I get this because it's big Oceanside police on the side of my truck, but we're in Fallbrook. Someone looks over, and they speed up. My police powers do not stop at the city limits. Watching the Dukes of Hazzard where the county sheriff had to come to a screeching halt because Duke brothers, you know, went over the county line. I know like 2 people in the room know what I'm talking
I was just gonna comment.
Well, they made like a more recent movie, so maybe their parents watched it once. Yeah, that's not true. We actually have jurisdiction throughout the state. So, spirit of the law. What was the intent? Yeah, what was the intent of the law? How many of you have a parent, a loved one who, when they put their seatbelt on, they put it underneath their arm? Right? Because you know, maybe they're a little shorter in stature, maybe it irritates their neck, right? So they put it underneath their arm. What's that?
It does.
It irritates, right? That's a literal violation of 27315D of the vehicle code.
Never mind, I don't do it.
You're not properly wearing your seatbelt, right? The seatbelt has to be properly worn. Can you get a ticket for it? Absolutely. Yeah. You four get in a car together, you're driving, these are your passengers, no one's wearing seatbelts. You know you can receive a ticket for him not wearing a seatbelt?
Mm-hmm.
And you can receive a ticket for you not wearing a seatbelt, and he can receive a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. So a situation like that, you could actually get 4 tickets, and these guys could get a ticket apiece. Letter of the law.
Like $1,000 bill.
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't go to Starbucks anymore. It's going to cost you $1,000, right? That's letter of the law. The spirit of the law is what was the intent of the law. So what was the intent? So what do we do with the intent? We try to give education. Hey, the reason that I want you to put your seatbelt over your shoulder like that is because, believe it or not, your ribs are the most vulnerable part of your body. And if you get into an accident, all that force is going to project into your organs. Your ribs are designed to protect your organs. So if you get into an accident, you're taking your ribs and you're pushing them into your vital organs. We don't want to do that. We want the seatbelt to go over. People much smarter than me, who have engineering degrees, have created this system to try to protect you the best way possible. So if you wear it over your shoulder, over your collarbone, I know it's uncomfortable, and you get into that accident, you're actually going to get all that pressure pushing in on your sternum, which is going to hold your chest together, which is going to give you the most chance of surviving. Yeah, that was the whole reason why seatbelts were invented in the first place. Not so that cops can meet a quota, so I can get my toaster at the end of the month, because you know we're poor and we need more money, so we're going to take $180 from you every time you don't wear your seatbelt. It's to protect you, you know. And I can tell you, in my life as a collision investigator, there's at least 3 people who are not alive today because they didn't wear their safety belt. So, letter of the law, spirit of the law. There's a lot more with that. There's obviously a lot more than just the traffic side of it. There's the criminal side of it. You know, like where are lines drawn? Cops are taught to enforce the spirit of the law, but we're also taught to know the letter of the law, because sometimes we have to use the letter of the law to solve a problem. All right? Sometimes we have to, and we don't like to, but that's usually because someone didn't accept the education that we were trying to provide to them. hey, I'd really like you to stop doing that. Your dog, I know, hey, your dog's great, he listens to you, but we in Oceanside have a 6-foot leash law for all dogs. And it has to be on a 6-foot leash. Yeah, my dog's fine. Man, your neighbors are calling, your dog actually, went after the kid down the street. Could you please, when you walk your dog, just put him on a leash? Now, you know what? F you, cop, I'm not doing what you say. Okay, I'm gonna enforce the letter of the law on that one. As opposed to, oh crap, I didn't realize that, I'm really sorry, hey, you know what, let me get that leash. Great. Education, we've just learned. Now we can all be a little bit safer. Whether you believe it's a problem or not, we can all be a little bit safer. What else? What do you got?
Bit of a random question, but what keeps horse cops around? Just thinking about the practicality of it.
Horse cops, like mounted
Yeah.
patrols? So, yeah, large agencies, they usually do them for parades, they do them for show more than anything. They are a great crowd control tool, but they're also, the optics are very bad because you're having this very large animal just basically run into people. So, a lot of it now is just more for show, and then the rural areas actually use them for search and rescue. So like San Bernardino County, some areas of Riverside County, I don't wanna go hike up that mountain, especially not if, a horse can carry me up there a little bit easier, right? Dirt bikes may be able to get up there, or they may not, but, horses, that's what they do, they got 4-wheel drive all the time, it's great. So, I got 4 hands up, let's go over here, we'll just work our way down.
Okay. This class is, majority young, right?
Yes.
So what would you say to them, the same thing you would say to your children, for them not to get into, you never know what they're gonna get into, it's very teen.
Yes.
So what kind of advice would you give them?
Okay, it's hard, right? Educate yourselves. That's the biggest thing. I know my rights. Okay, do you know all of them? Or do you just know the ones that, the one that you heard on the TikTok last night? Educate yourself, be respectful. Whether you believe the officer has earned it or not, be respectful, because that speaks of your character. If I'm a jerk to you, and you're respectful to me, who's the idiot in the conversation? I am. But if I'm a jerk to you and you're a jerk back, we're just 2 idiots having a conversation, right? So be respectful, because that's how I live my life. Like, you could be the rudest person in the world. I may say something like, hey, I don't get paid enough to deal with that. You have yourself a great day. And walk away, right? Because what am I gonna prove by having an argument with you? Nothing. Nothing at all, right? I'm a professional. I get paid a decent amount of money to be professional. So what I would bring to you guys is be respectful. There's a complaint process if you feel that you have been harassed or your rights have been violated or you feel like you've been treated discourteously. So if I'm a jerk to you and you don't like it, you be respectful, and when I leave, I want you to call my lieutenant. Hey, I'd like to file a complaint against Sergeant Bussey. He was an a-hole to me. He spoke to me like I was a child. I don't deserve that, and I want him to be spoken to. His body cam should have been on. If my body cam wasn't on, it's a violation of policy, I'll get in trouble. If my body cam was on and I recorded it, violation of policy, I'm gonna get in trouble. It's gonna hold me accountable, all right? And I say that because if it's one of my cops and they're talking to you like that, I wanna know. Because I hold them to a higher standard, much like we talked about.
How many officers do you have?
I currently, right now, have 12.
Out of those 12, there's 1, right?
There's always one. There's always
There's
one.
always the problem child.
There's always that one. There's always one. That's why I said, statistically in this room, there's somebody in this room who may or may not have done some no good things in their life or thinking about it, right? Hopefully it's not this room, hopefully it's that room. But statistics do show that, right? So be respectful and educate yourself, be respectful. And the biggest thing is if you don't know, please just do what you're told at the moment. Like we talked about, hey, I just need you to get out of here, right? I don't want to. You can't tell me what to do. You're not in charge of me. But you're putting yourself in danger, right? And again, you do that and you figure out that there was no reason for me to dock you like that, file a complaint. Complaints are on the rise in law enforcement, which are good. I think it's good, because it holds us accountable. 20 years ago when I started, do you think it was the same job? Half of you guys were probably still in your diapers at that time, right? No, it was a whole different job back then. There was no cameras. If I got into a use of force, it was literally a phone call. Hey, Sarge. Yeah, this guy popped off, so we put him on the ground. Oh yeah, he's fine. We'll clean him up. All right, cool. Thanks. That was use of force reporting back in the day. You know, that was it. No ambulance, no body cams, no check for witnesses, no asking if anyone's got video. Yeah. Kick somebody's butt for talking off and having an attitude, and then you just moved on with your life. That was how it was. And then I heard from the old guys when I started how it was even worse back then. You know? Is that right? No, right? It's not right. And that's why cops got the reputation that they get sometimes. Yeah? This stigma that we're unapproachable, that we're just trying to mess with you. You know? Like, how dare you wear that New York hat? What gang are you in? Who do you claim? Right? You're like, no, I just like the Mets. It's like, oh, okay, so Met, that's what they call you out here? You know? It's a different world. So, be respectful, educate yourselves, which is great. You're all in a college class educating yourself on the law. It's very important that you're here. I did the same thing when I was active duty, because I wanted to know what I was getting myself into, right? So I went through Palomar College, I was down in Camp Pendleton, they came on the base, and I went through all the AJ classes. It's very important that you educate yourself, because education is key, yeah? So is respect, and it goes both ways. And if you get into a situation where you're being disrespected, especially by somebody in law enforcement, take the high road. I know it's hard at your age. There's a lot of attitude in this room, a lot of how the hell do you don't talk to me like that. Nobody talks to me like that, right? Just let it go. Be like, hey, you know what, officer, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad. Hey, you know what? Whatever you say, yes sir, I'm sorry. Yeah? And that way at the end, you can do something about it. Because if you come to me and I watch that body cam between you and the officer and you guys are just yelling at each other, disrespecting each other, being a-holes to each other, I'm gonna pull them in and be like, hey man, you lost your cool. You can't do that, right? Yeah, I know the other guy was a jerk too, I get it, right? But you can't do that. I might look at it a little bit differently than, hey, why did you speak to him like that? He was the politest guy in the world. Hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on at home, man? Because something's obviously going on with you. You need to take some time off. Can I get you into a mandatory dealing with difficult people's class? Can I get you into a mandatory, you know, because we have the ability to send someone to training on how to talk to people. Yeah, because not everybody can talk to everybody. You know, there's different personality. Have you guys anybody taken a psychology class? There's different personality types, right? And some personality types, they just don't connect. You know, like these three over here can talk to these three over here, but this guy and this guy, yeah, they just don't connect. And that's why we take, in law enforcement, we take those psych tests. Because there's certain personality traits that you don't want in this job. They're gonna be a hindrance to your entire career. Okay, you got that question answered? Who else? Down, you in the back, you've been quiet.
Is there any case in particular that like affected you a lot emotionally?
Absolutely. Last week, 16-month-old baby, just learning how to walk, walked out in the street. Guy driving his F-150 down the road, didn't see the kid. So we can all imagine what happened. And then it happened in front of Grandpa. Grandma, Grandpa, and Dad were in the house. It was a Middle Eastern Chaldean family where within an hour, they had like 40 or 50 family members at the house. And it was the most horrific thing for me to watch because they refused to let go of their child. So I won't go into gory details, but they refused to let go of their child. So for 2.5 hours, we had to sit there with the family because we still have an investigation that we need to do. And that's where we get a bad name because you're bawling your eyes out. And I'm like, hey, what's your name? Can I get your date of birth real quick? Okay, thanks. Where were you an hour ago? You know, and you're just trying to grieve, but we still have a process we have to do, right? So that's where we get a bad name because unfortunately, there are times where we have to flip our emotions off because we have to handle things a certain way, right? Does that mean that our emotions are off? No, they're just subdued. And when I get in my car by myself, or I get home, or I go and I call my daughter because I have a 14-month-old grandson, that's where the emotions come out. Yeah. So yeah, that call sucked. That call sucked a lot. And then my worst call ever in my career. My oldest, who's 28, she's a veterinarian now. She was 10 at the time, and I had to do CPR on an 11-year-old girl who hung herself. And that was horrible, because at one point when I'm doing CPR, I look down at this child, and who do you think I saw? Saw my daughter's face. So that one still gets me to this day, obviously. So I'll deal with that later. that memory will come up later in counseling. It'll be fine. Everything's fine. So yes, ma'am.
Do you ever get, or like, are in a situation where you have to pull a child from a house and you know it's abuse there, but then they get sent back, like?
Oh yeah. Our child welfare system is, I don't want to say it's broken, but it definitely needs some fixing.
It's lacking is
Is
what
there
I say.
It's lacking.
Is there
right?
anything you can do to like pull them back out even though they get sent back, like knowing that it's them?
It's hard and it sucks because there's only so much power the police have, right? I investigate this crime, you were abusive to your child, I take you to jail, I take your child away, I now give it to the professional agency that is supposed to tell me that it is okay to put that child back in the home. That agency says it's okay to put that child back in the home. And 2 days later, we're investigating the murder of that child. It's hard, it sucks, right? And there's been several cases like that have happened. There was a 9-year-old girl who got killed by her father 3 years ago. And she had been a part of the CPS system or child welfare system several times. It was horrible, you know, and it wears on you. You can only do what you can do. Yeah, we all play our part in the process. And that's one of those times where if you're sitting in this class, maybe law enforcement might not be something you're thinking about. Maybe you want to get into child welfare services because you want to make that change. You want to be the person that gets through the system, that gets to a position of leadership and says, no, why are we going to get that kid back, right? And that's something, you guys are all young, you guys can change the world that way. Yeah, that's something you got to think about here. Answer your question. Working down, I'll get to you. There's other people.
Do you think your police department has an adequate budget, or would you prefer to it be bigger, have better equipment and better training?
Yes. Every single one of us, I'm selfish and unbiased because I'm still a ground level troop. I still work, I still wear a uniform. I still go out in the field in a marked car. Obviously more money, obviously more money, better equipment, better training is gonna create a better product. It's true with almost every part of society, right? So yes, better training, better equipment, better everything creates a better product. Now you go to, yes, sir.
Entry level qualifications to work at your agency. Might as well just
Sure.
spin into that too.
Yeah, we're getting there. 20 and a half, all right? 20 and a half years old to get hired. You start the academy, 6-month academy, you gotta be 21 in order to get sworn. You know, you can't carry a gun legally in California as a police officer until you're 21 years old. High school diploma or GED or equivalent, and you gotta pass that physical test that we talked about. Those are like the minimum requirements to be a police officer.
Citizenship?
Citizenship, US citizen. I know California, and this is something, California passed that if you are not a US citizen and not naturalized and not going through processes, that you can be a police officer. However, the Department of Justice will not give you credentials to carry a firearm unless you are a US citizen, naturalized citizen, something along those lines. So if there is someone in this room who falls into that category, work on getting your citizenship. Don't rely on that. We have the DACA Act? The DACA Act. We have someone who is a community service officer in our department. He works down at the beach, he's non-sworn, his goal is to be a police officer. We've been working on him for years to try to get his citizenship, and I don't know why. Like, we tell him all the time, like, hey, there's people who will sponsor you. Yes, it's a long process. Go through it. That way you can fulfill his dream.
What's the average hourly pay?
Hourly pay. So starting off in the academy, you're going to make $31.31 an hour in the academy. Okay. So 31 bucks in the academy. When you get out of the academy, because in the academy you are a police recruit. You're not a police officer. When you get out of the academy, you get roughly a $5 or $6 an hour raise. You're going to be making about 38 bucks to start as a police officer.
That's sponsored, right?
That's sponsored, yeah. So you're actually getting paid in the academy. You're getting paid to go to the academy. The city is paying for your academy, so you're not accruing any, student loans or anything like that. You're benefited, which guys and girls at your age probably don't really consider that too much of a big deal, but you got health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, right? If you get hurt in the academy and you blow your knee, You wanna have health benefits, trust me, you don't want that bill. We have 7 steps as a police officer. It takes 6.5 years to get through them. Top step police officer right now, and our contract, we're actually negotiating contract right now, they are making $52 an hour. So a top step police officer, $52 an hour by 2,080 hours a year, that's the 40-hour work week times 52, you're roughly pulling in about 110 to 115, assuming that you don't work a lick of overtime. Me as a sergeant, I am making in the mid-60s an hour. And I work overtime. So, I mean, my gross income last year started with a 2. We'll just leave it at that. So it is a job that you can thrive in California doing. They pay you enough to earn a good living. Can anyone tell me why you think that is?
Your life is on the line.
Life's on the line, that's a good one. Why else? Enforcing the law, right? You gotta deal with a lot of crap, right? Go ahead.
Protecting everybody.
Protecting everybody.
The cost of living here is pretty expensive.
Cost of living sucks, right? One of the biggest things, keeps us honest, right? If I pull over you and you got 30 grand in a bag in your car, am I gonna risk my freaking career over 30 grand in a car? No, right? Because we all watch those movies or heard the stories, or you look back at New York in the olden times when it was all run by the mafia and everybody was on the take on something, right? No, it keeps us honest. I know what my pension is and I know what my career is worth. I pulled over a guy one time with 13 pounds of marijuana and over $150,000 of cash in his car. He was a grower up in Modesto, and he was coming down to the illegal dispensaries before it was legalized, selling his weed. And he was halfway through his trip, It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Never even freaking crossed my mind to think about it, right? Because we make a decent amount of money. So, and yeah, there are dangers to the job, It's like I could walk out of here today and someone could attack me just because of the uniform I'm wearing. It's true. It's happened before, Vegas Metro had a couple cops who were just eating pizza 5 or 6 years ago, and somebody walked up and shot and killed them for eating pizza, right? My beat partner at the time had just come from Vegas Metro, and one of the guys that died, I think his name was Igor, was one of his best friends. So, for eating pizza. How dare he, right? How dare he? That man had a family. So, just something to think about. So, and I bring that up also because, like, if you see us out in public, we generally sit facing doors. We generally sit where we cover fields of fire. I'm watching everybody that walks by. Active shooter situations are real. Like, that's something we gotta think about. If an active shooter happened right now, what do you guys thought to do? Shelter in place? Right? I'm taught to run to the gunfire. So I gotta go deal with it. So, but who else had a question?
As a sergeant, how do you process getting a search warrant for someone's house?
Okay. So getting a search warrant, after hours, there's an online system that we fill everything out. We'll wake up a district attorney, they'll look at it. If they're good, they'll wake up the on-duty judge, they'll sign it. We can go kick a door within, 10, 15, 20 minutes. On duty, like during regular business hours, I can type it up and I can walk it over to the court, go find a DA, say, hey, can you review this for legal justification? DA reviews it, initials it. Hey, who's the issuing judge right now? Judge, Thompson up in Department 22. Walk up there, hey judge, am I talking to you? Hand it to him, he signs it. So search warrants are scary when you've never done them. Once you do them, they're actually pretty easy.
Question.
Go ahead.
So I know, like in Oregon and Illinois, some police departments carry staccatos. Adverse side, where do you guys get in firearm wise, like 1911s?
So Oceanside we're issued blocks, but we can carry 9 or 10 different, as long as it's a reputable manufacturer. There's a lot of guys who carry staccatos. I'll be honest with you, the staccato, it's a great gun. It's also a $3,000 gun that you're gonna pay for on your own. And you're gonna run this thing up against a stucco wall, you're gonna jump over a fence, I've been on the ground where my gun's been scraped down the side. I just got this gun issued to me a year ago because we went with Gen 5s with red dot sights and all that stuff. My Gen 3 that I had concrete marks going down the side of it with a fight I was in on the concrete. So, something to think about when you put your $3,000 gun in your own holster. So, yes, sir.
Did you ever have to use it on someone, your weapon? And if so, how bad did it change you?
Like I said, everyone in this room knows how to use Google, right? You can probably answer that own question for yourself by the time I get down the stairs. So, it's just something I'd rather not talk about. Yeah, but yes, the answer to your question, yes.
Your holster has 3 locks on it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Multi-lock holster, the last thing I wanna do is have somebody just walk up from behind me and be able to pull my gun out. Alright? Because that is the thing, every situation I'm in is a man with a gun situation. Every single one of them. So that's something we gotta think about. Let's see. You, then you. Go ahead.
So when you go to cars, I know some places like, put their finger on like on the brake light.
Mhm.
I know it's pretty fingerprint, so if they take off, you can find them, right? Is that what the point of that is, or?
Social media did that.
So why do you guys touch the brake light?
A lot of times it's to check the trunk, to make sure the trunk's latched, because there was one case, one time, one place where somebody was in the trunk ambushing the cop and they had the trunk being held down. Doesn't really count as much anymore, we're talking about the older cars, and plus, there's the security features in the trunks now where somebody is in there, they can pop it. A lot of cops, it's just, like I was trained to do that, I was trained to walk up to the car, you know, check the hood, stay at the B-pillar, hello sir, hi, can I talk to you real quick, you know? That way the B-pillar kind of protects me, because if somebody has a gun, they have to do this to try to shoot me, and now they're shooting through a lot of metal, the B-pillar, which will hopefully deflect the round enough to where my vest will catch it and it won't kill me. It also gives me an opportunity to take a step back, and I've got a fairly clean shot at this part of someone. So that's part of tactics with walking up to a car. Good to go. And you had one?
How hard is it for women in your line of duty?
Just as hard as it is for the men.
Is it equal, or is it?
Equal, nothing's equal, or, you know, nothing's equal. I don't think it's worse, it's just different. Because while, let's say, him and I want him to sit down, he doesn't wanna sit down, he's gonna look me up and down and be, you know what, and probably kick his ass. Right? And just like I'm gonna look him up and down and be like, yeah, it's gonna hurt, but I can do this, right? Whereas you may use a different tactic. He may not want to think about that with you because you are a female. He may wanna be like, you know what, I don't wanna have that. My parents always taught me never hit a girl, you know, and even though I don't like her, she's a cop, I'm not gonna hit her, right? I've been in a situation where 5 of us were with a jacked up bodybuilder and he just wasn't listening. He was like, I'll take all 5 of you. And the little itty bitty girl who I went to the academy with shows up, cutest button, and goes, sir, will you just have a seat? Nobody wants to see this. And he was like, he was just hyper focused on her. And he listened to everything that she said, to the point where we just checked our egos and we just kind of took a step back. We were like, hey, if that works, that works. Great, right? There's also been other times where, you know, sometimes you gotta use brute force, where maybe you're a smaller stature man or woman, and the only thing you can do is grab an arm. Hey, that's one less arm I have to worry about, right? Women generally have better communication skills than men. Men generally have bigger attitudes, right? Ego. It's, you know, this is a alpha male driven career field that we're trying to not be that way anymore. So it's very beneficial to have more females in it. We've seen that in our department where we've had, when I first started, there was maybe 10, 12 females that worked the streets. Now we have 25 or 30. You know, it's very beneficial, you know, because we all learn from each other, you know, and she may have a problem where something happened to her and she doesn't want to talk to me. She doesn't want to tell me her personal thing that happened to her. She'd rather talk to you about it, right? So it's important that we have a diverse group that can please, because we, you know, the whole world isn't a nail and we're not just one hammer. We have a whole bunch of different tools that we need to use, so it helps. Yeah.
Sarge, if I'm interested in becoming a police officer, why should I go to Oceanside?
So, you guys all watch the news and you see people throwing bottles at their cops and trying to burn them alive in San Francisco, and then they do all these things in different areas, right? Oceanside, our citizens actually still like us because we treat them with respect. We have a good time with them. I do not live in fear as I walk down the streets in Oceanside. We have had people from LAPD come lateral to us who were like, wait a minute, you can just stand out here and have coffee in this parking lot? Like, no, we're ordered not to stand in public. If we wanna go decompress, we have to go to the station to where we have 10-foot block walls. Like, sounds crazy, you know? Like, pull up a chair, it's nice out, why would I wanna go to the station? We have a beach. Most of you guys live up here, I'm assuming?
I used to live in.
You just live in Oceanside? We have a beach. It's nice, you know? I live a couple minutes down the road. I live over by Winchester and Murrieta Hot Springs. It was hot last week. It was like 110 degrees out there. It was 72 down Oceanside. I was going to work enjoying myself. It says a lot when you can go somewhere and you can actually enjoy being there and have good interactions with the people who you serve. You know, it really does make it a lot easier. We've got Stockton. We had 12 people from Stockton come down about 8 or 9 years ago when Stockton was falling apart. And they came to us and they're like, your citizens actually say thank you for your service here. I'm like, yeah, they do it all the time. I was like, somebody bought my coffee the other day. I was like, yeah, they do it all the time. Like, it's just normal, right? Like, to me, it's normal. To them, it was just like this, holy crap, like they're not keying your car when you walk inside. They're not throwing things at you. Like, it was just, it makes a big difference. It keeps you happy. Whether it's Oceanside or whether it's other agencies that you guys are looking at, please check to make sure that you're not getting into a situation where you're going to be spit on, harassed, cursed at all day long, because it wears on your soul and it makes you a very bitter person. So.
Just want to comment on Oceanside.
Yeah.
I've camped out there in the harbor several times, and the residents there, the locals are great, man. It's a great community.
It's a great community.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And like I said, we are looking for people. We are 30 officers down right now, which is almost indicative across the board. If you don't want to be a cop, maybe you want to be a dispatcher, we're short 7 dispatchers. Maybe you don't want to do law enforcement or dispatch, you want to do more of the clerical work. We have records text positions. We call them senior office specialists, where it's a fancy term for an office secretary, if you will, right? And we have those positions available. We have a lot of positions available. Community service officers, who here is 18, 19-ish? So 18, 19, we have community service officers. Non-sworn position, uniformed, driving a car, you're going out, you're handling cold crimes, you're handling those hit and runs where the suspect's gone, and you're just going out there and you're learning. And that's a 3-year position designed to get you to build into getting into law enforcement. We also have field evidence technicians, where you go out and you process, you know, criminal scenes and CSI and all that stuff. I mean, so there's jobs that are out there that are other than just carrying the gun, you know, dealing with the bad people all day. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm just up here, hey, if you don't want to be a cop, I don't care about you. You know, there's a lot of other jobs out there for you. So, yes.
So I'm 18 and I want to be a detective. What could I do at 18 with police level like Oceanside?
Sure. What can you do? You can become, if you want to get paid, you can be a community service officer. If you want to be one of our explorers, we have an explorer program that's unpaid. You got to commit 16 hours a month. The other big thing you can do is exactly what you're doing. You sit in a class like this being taught by someone like that, so that way when you do get in front of me in an oral interview panel, and I ask you the question, what have you done to prepare for this job? You know, well, I've taken administration of justice, 101, 102, 103, 101, whatever. You know, I watch a lot of freaking TV, I watch CSI, I watch every cop show out there, you know, I know the law, whatever it is that's gonna help you, but college education's huge, you know. We have education incentives where, so we have, it's called certificate pay. When you graduate the academy, you have a basic post-certificate, okay? If you have your bachelor's degree, you get your intermediate post-certificate at 4 years, and then you get your advanced post-certificate at 6. If you have your master's, you get your intermediate at 2, and your advanced at 4. Now, how does that relate to you? Intermediate post-certificate gives you 5% more pay. Advanced post-certificate gives you 7% more pay. So I have my advanced post-certificate, I get 7% on top of the hourly rate that I've already told you guys from earlier. Education will help you out a lot on that. So, yes?
How many years does it take till you can retire? Is it like 20 years, 30 years?
So it's set at an age. Right now, the current retirement system for Oceanside, and some counties are different, some places are different. We're at 2.7% at 57, meaning You work till you're 57, you get 2.7% for every year that you've worked. So if you work 10 years, you get hired at 47, you work 10 years, you're gonna get 2.7 times 10, 27%, 27% of your highest paid year. You know, now calculate that out when you do a 30-year career. There are other agencies, there are other factors, like you can retire at 50, but you get 2% for every year, you know? They just created this one not too long ago. They change it often. I'm in a different retirement system because they changed this back in 2013. There are agencies that do 2.5 to 55. There are out-of-state agencies like Texas. You do 20 years, you can retire at 20 years. You know, and then you get, I think if they do 45 or 50%. So if you are looking into law enforcement, make sure that you understand the retirement system, because at your guys' age, you don't think about it that much. At my age, I think about it a lot. So definitely something to consider. So, yes. Somebody over here first. You go after, she'll go after.
So when you have, so say you see someone in their car smoking marijuana, will you pull them over immediately for smoking marijuana if you see it, or will you just let them go?
That all really all depends. I mean, like I said, last week, yeah, they go with God, right? But if you're smoking marijuana, marijuana is a intoxicating substance. You should not be driving a vehicle with it. However, does that mean that you're under the influence at the time? You know, you're striking up your first bowl as you're going down the road, you're not gonna be under the influence yet. Now, if there's other indication, you're swerving, you're doing whatever, chances are you're probably gonna get that DUI that you've been waiting for, right? But it is also illegal. So marijuana is legal in California for recreational use. So is alcohol. That doesn't mean I can drink alcohol out of an open container while driving my vehicle, right? I can't just pop a can walking down the sidewalk. Just like you can't just smoke a bowl walking down the sidewalk. So there, even though it's legal, there are rules to it. You know, so that's something to consider, and that's something that we look at when we make that decision. So, yes.
With the jobs that you said, like while we're still in school, or, you know, with an associate's, like with the police academy, could you start and then become an officer and still go and get your bachelor's, or do
Sure.
they prefer that you would?
Absolutely. So we don't, the minimum, like I said, the minimum, when I started, the minimum requirement was an associate's. There is legislation that is being talked about making the minimum requirement for police to be a bachelor. I don't think that'll ever happen, because it's already hard enough to get people to, you know, to kind of join. To put that upon people is gonna be that much harder. Now, you get hired, we have education incentives, we have tuition reimbursement through the city, and those educational incentives still cover on. So you get hired, you have your associates, and with an associate's, it's 6 years to intermediate and 9 years to advanced. You get your bachelor's in your first 3 years on, and you'll bump down, you'll get those numbers bumped down, which will help you to get that certificate there. So, and, go ahead.
Do you have to like, is getting into the police academy, like, you have to apply for it and get like approved to join it, or is it just like signing up for a class and like, for the semester?
So there's two ways to do it. You can do an open enrollee, which is what you just said at the end there, right? You can sign up for the class, you can pay for it yourself. Generally, those are like Tuesday and Thursday nights and all day Saturday. And it's like a 9-month program, right? That's open enrollee. You're paying for yourself. You're not sponsored, you're not benefited. That guarantees you a basic post-certificate at the end, which, let's say you got something in your background, like you applied and you got denied, you got something in your background that kind of is prohibiting that a little bit. They could look at that and say, oh, okay, we're more willing to take a chance with you because you already went to the academy, right? The other way is you apply through an agency, whether it be a local police department, a sheriff's department, you get hired by them, and then they sponsor you through the academy. And that's where you get paid to be there, you're an employee of the city or county while you're there, and then when you do graduate, you get sworn right into that agency.
Can you do that for the
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes, so if anybody has questions, ask them now, forever hold your peace.
No, good. One more, go ahead. No, yeah, I think you're just scratching zero.
DUI checkpoints, is that, so I know you get said those sometimes.
Yes.
Is it based on statistic of holidays, or is it based off like every month or so you notice there's a lot more crashes with people being drunk?
The latter. So DUI checkpoints are legal in California as long as we follow certain rules. One of those rules is they have to be impactful to the area. We can't just pick and choose an area. So we look at an area where we've had a higher amount of crashes, or maybe I've been looking at everyone seems to be arresting DUIs out of this certain area, we'll hold a checkpoint in that area. So, did I answer that question? So guys, I know we're running out of time. I appreciate y'all letting me talk to you. There are some trifolds up here. There's QR codes on the back of the trifolds. If you guys are interested, please come grab one. It's got information on there. I will leave a business card with your professor, so if anybody needs to get a hold of me, they can email me or call me and we can talk from there. But